to Live from the Heartland Radio. It is Saturday, July 6th. It's a sunny, warm day. The fireworks have hopefully ended. Please, God. Although we did walk down to Loyola Park the other night and witness all of the wonderful self-made fireworks displays, and
Let's
everybody
hope
was
they're not self-made.
well, self-generating shows. You know, all the dads running 10 feet away, saying, "Stay back there while I light this," and then they light it, and everybody goes, "Woo!" And it was really cool. I mean, Loyola Park is way too cool on July 4th. It's a United Nations and hundreds of people all being pretty happy together. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case all over the city, but we won't go there just yet. We'll let Jim tell us that later. We invited on our show today a young lady, a sister, who made some headlines and got my attention because she's a gardener, and I am a novice gardener. I only garden on the public way, Kath, but Kathy Cummings was in the Reader not that long ago, and then also the regular media, Sun-Times, Tribune, both covered you as well?
No, not the Sun-Times.
Not the Sun-Times, the Tribune.
Tribune 3 times.
Tribune went over, on getting a ticket for growing, I think it essentially was milkweed that they gave you the ticket for?
Well, that's what it turned out to be at the administrative hearing.
And so we'll get, welcome to the show, Kathy Cummings. And
Thank you
for making the time. She also brought with her a man who is not unfamiliar to the Heartland and some of us up here, Jim Bowers, who I assume is giving you an excellent rate for his representation. Yeah. Kathy, why don't you start us off with this? First of all, what neighborhood do you live in?
I live in West Ukrainian Village, or West Wicker Park, East Humboldt Park, whatever you want to call it.
I predict in 5 years you'll have a new neighborhood name for that. But anyway.
Probably.
Yeah, it's fertile territory for that. When you say West something and East something else, they're going to make it Wrigleyville. No, they won't do that. Kathy, you've been gardening all the time that you've lived there?
Yes, yes. I moved in 1999, and about the next year I started taking out the privet and the grass. The privet was just struggling to survive, and I wanted to put native plants in.
What's privet? Sorry.
Yeah.
I just got to ask.
Well, privet is a bush, and it turns out to be on the Chicago list of noxious weeds. So we've got that's sort of an issue that's just come up too. But in 2004, Mayor Daley gave me an award for most naturalized garden. And then in 2005, I got honorable mention. And just last Halloween, I got a ticket for weeds.
So let's see, we go from awards to tickets.
We nurse with you with one hand and slap you down with the other.
That's right.
What changed in those 8 years between your award and your ticket?
Really nothing that I know of. I'm still trying to find out. Jim's going to help dig deeper and find out exactly why it happened.
So just sticking on the point of the city in contact with gardeners for whatever reason, you get an award, which means they're paying attention to development and wonderful things happening on the ground by people.
Right.
Now, I know a couple of things that changed in those 8 years. The mayor, for one.
Yes.
And the economy, for another. As small business people, we became aware of a lot of different ways the city was figuring out to collect fees that didn't exist before. Would this fall in the realm of things made up to collect money for?
Well, in 2010, we found out that the aldermen unanimously voted for raising the fine of weeds. And what they consider weeds are plants that are over 10 inches and in a yard that's not maintained. So in
Wait a minute.
2010,
What does that mean? In a yard that's not maintained?
well, it's vague. It's a vague ordinance. It's confusing. It's
I got 6-foot sunflowers on the corner right now.
Okay, I know of a person. I know of a person that got a ticket for a 6-foot rose bush. Ken Dunn told us about that.
Oh my goodness.
Ken Dunn's
You all
another
remember
person.
Ken Dunn was on this show a few years ago. He's a big name in Chicago for farming, for recycling, for
Right.
a lifetime of devoting himself to getting a better practice
Right.
on our part as stewards.
Right. He's had a native plant garden since 1972 with no problems.
And then he got a ticket. you
Yeah,
said.
I started calling around to find out, what's going on, what happened, and he said he had just gotten a ticket and he paid it. So
So he didn't fight it.
he did not. Right.
What did he get a ticket for?
Milkweed.
Wow, milkweed is definitely not popular with these cats.
Well,
Let me just say one thing about milkweed.
yes.
Okay.
It is a food, and we had a chef here named Buck back in the old days here at the Heartland Cafe, and he was totally blissed out when he discovered in our garden growing out front a bunch of milkweed, and he promptly took the, I'm not sure what you call them, the plant, the top.
pod?
The pod, and there's little like pods inside,
feathery.
and he sauteed them in, the round things inside. He sauteed them in
scientist.
butter,
We
and
have a scientist.
It was delicious.
Oh, wonderful.
And, I always thought we should put it on the menu and harvest it.
Oh, wonderful.
Exactly.
Well, Native Americans have known that it's edible, for centuries.
So describe your garden to us, and also the plot.
Okay, well, my garden I have sectioned off with branches that I pick up along the way when I walk my dog. So the fence is made out of branches that are laid together and sort of intertwined. And I have the parkway and 2 parkways and 2 yards. And the administrative judge said that it looks maintained in that section and that section and that section, but then he said in that section, in my experience, that's a weed. And I didn't know what he was talking about until I got a copy of the photographs and could tell that
so he's looking at photographs that you were not looking at.
Well, he was looking at them, but they were in black and white, and it was disoriented.
And they took the pictures themselves. And they were not pictures you sent them.
Well, Tehran, my friend, had...
Tehran, also a former chef at the Heartland, many years ago.
We had taken pictures of the garden in a more artistic way.
Yes.
So, and the judge did look at that, but he said that wasn't admissible because it was not on paper.
Could I just point out that...
Hey, Bob. Jump in. Jim. Jim Bob.
In a lot of these cases, most of the people that go to the administrative hearings don't see the photographs for 4 to 6 months. And so they have no idea what the property actually looked like to the time that the photographs were taken. It's a very unfair, very intimidating process along every step of the way. From the issuing of the ticket to the conduct of the demeanor of the inspector, demeanor of the prosecutors, demeanor of the administrative law judges. It's a machine that's designed to intimidate people into pleading guilty and paying the fines.
I think we've come across that from time to time ourselves. And so you stood up to him, did you?
Well, I was very disappointed. Life became surreal at that point.
When did this start, by the way?
That was the court date was in February.
So the ticket came to you back in last year's growing season?
On Halloween last year.
Ah,
Yeah.
how appropriate.
Yeah.
Okay. So when did you get involved, Jim Bowers?
Well, I used to live in the 2-flat next to Kathy 35 years ago, so we knew each other. I still own it. I'm an accidental landlord. I've since moved west to the Austin neighborhood.
They call that Oak Park, don't they?
No, the color line is still at Austin Boulevard.
Oh, I see. So you're west. Okay.
I'm east of Austin Boulevard. Kathy called me, and she was looking for a lawyer, and at first, these are very hard cases for a lawyer to defend. Almost everybody that goes to these cases goes pro se or represents themselves. They have no legal training. The fine is anywhere from $600 to $1,200, and you really can't afford to bring a lawyer in for that amount.
Right.
And so, Kathy first called me. I thought, I'm not sure what I can do here, but my main area of emphasis has been police misconduct under the Civil Rights Act of 1871. And what that is a law that allows citizens to sue their local governments and local government employees when they violate their constitutional rights.
Wow.
And so I made the connection that Kathy's garden it's art, it's expressive conduct. There were signs in the garden indicating that she was a member of the organization Wild Ones. The twig borders it was obvious this was a garden. And so it was obvious this was expressive conduct. So therefore, because the city violated her First Amendment rights, I can pull it in through the Civil Rights Act of 1871. And also, we have due process violations, which is another grounds for bringing it in under the Civil Rights Act, because the ordinance that she was cited under is as vague can be.
Now, Jim, I'm sorry, I got to ask you, and I'm no legal scholar, but is that kind of a stretch to go that far to argue for that to be her protection? I mean, do we not have something a little closer in, like property rights, or? But I mean, you're gonna fight a big fight if you're doing the First Amendment thing, aren't you?
I don't think we have anything closer at all.
No.
What this allows us to do is, if we prevail, the city will pay my attorney's fees. I don't have to charge Kathy a dime. If we lose, all I've lost is my time.
As a citizen, I don't mind paying your fees. I do mind paying the fees of lawyers who defend bad cops.
You know, before the show, we were talking a little bit, and you talked about how the number of fines and tickets issued around weeds in people's lawn has really increased in a great way.
Yeah.
And it's basically become another revenue generator for the city. Could you address that a little bit?
Sure. In the last 2 years, I mean, Kathy has done phenomenal work with Freedom of Information Act requests. She's one of the best clients I've ever had. We found out that in the last 2 years, the city has issued approximately 20,000 tickets for weeds violations and have collected in excess of $7 million from citizens. And the ordinance itself just says it's illegal to have weeds greater than an average of 10 inches. And I don't know what an average of 10 inches means. Does it mean a single clump? Does it mean can one sunflower skew your whole average? We don't know what the term weeds means. Weeds is not a botanical term. That's the big deal.
Yeah. And anybody who's ever gardened knows the experience of looking at what comes up in your garden and going, is that a weed or not? And
well,
if it looks,
until you become more knowledgeable.
I know, but that's true. But we all start out not knowing.
Yeah.
And sometimes weeds are pretty enough to keep as well.
Absolutely. And many of them are medicinal. I mean, actually, they are medicinal.
So,
Edible and medicinal.
in your search for to get this information, by the way, congratulations on doing that search through
Thank you.
Freedom of Information Act, because I understand that's only become more difficult to track down with the city. But you found it. You found what you needed. Did you have to be tenacious?
Tenacious. That's my middle name. But I wanted to go back to 2010 when the aldermen unanimously voted to increase the fine from $100 to $600, and that's the minimum fine.
The alderman did this.
Yeah.
Was it part
Yeah.
of a new budget thing, or was it separate?
This was...
Was it just part of a new budget that they say yes to without
It was
reading half of it?
Probably.
It was a simple city council proposal to raise the fines for the weed ordinance alone. It wasn't part of the budget. The city has done many other things since the budget. I mean, the city has eliminated the Department of Environment in 2011. The Department of Environment had promulgated regulations that listed 25 specific plants that are invasive and noxious. And instead, they chose to use this dull knife of a vague weeds ordinance to enforce laws that are involving environmental aesthetics and ethics.
Go ahead.
You know, another thing that we talked about earlier was the, not only were they issuing more citations, but these citations tend to be issued in, on the south side and the west side, as I understand it. And so it affects certain segments of the population. And what about that?
Well, Kathy's Freedom of Information Act request, again, I think it was her 5th or 6th one, got the numbers of citations issued per ward. And I went through those and crunched the numbers and found that a third to half of the citations for the last 5 years were in 5 wards on the west and south sides.
A third to half?
And a lot of empty lots too, right?
Some is empty lots, but we found that we've had several meetings with people that have been subjected to this ordinance, and people can't give away empty lots anymore. A lot of them bought empty lots next to their houses. They bought them for investment. Nobody wants them. The fines are making them...
They only paid $100 or $500 at the most.
For a lot.
For a lot.
An adjoining lot.
Yeah.
And
but then they found out that they needed a metal fence around the lot. And
Metal?
Metal, yes. And then they found out that people were cutting their fences down, collecting for metal to, so.
You were, finish the sentence, you were
Sorry.
saying, Jim, you were right in the middle of something.
Well, I think we were talking about the number of citations on the west and south side.
Yeah.
And, you know, what I found as a 25-year resident of the real west side, the far west side, is that we have the history of the Austin 7, so citizens are a little nervous about police contact. I think citizens are equally nervous, if not more so, about contact with city inspectors. As you know, former Alderman Simpson has written, I think, a half a dozen corruption reports from the Department of Political Science at U of I. And those reports point out that Operation Crooked Code, for example, there were, I think, 23 building inspectors indicted.
Operation what?
Crooked Code.
Okay.
That's an insane number of city employees in one department indicted for corruption. I think that neighbors in the poorer communities feel powerless. They feel that they can be crippled financially by these citations, by these fines. The fines are, if you don't show up for your hearing, it's automatically $1,200.
Right, it goes up to the highest amount.
And the highest amount is not just $1,200. The ordinance says it can be up to $1,200 per day. So if the inspector were to come in and say, those weeds were there for 10 days, it could be $12,000. It's a very subjective enforcement mechanism.
It used to be just driving while black or Latino. Now it's planting while black or Latino.
Yeah. So let me go back to that left everyone speechless. Kath,
Just occurred to me.
what kind of, I know we mentioned the name of Ken Dunn, who also received a citation, a ticket. Is there a move afoot, since you received publicity about this, is there a move afoot to unite, get a bigger voice on the part of gardeners and growers to educate the city and to maybe what you referred to, Jim, the reinstate the list that is more specific of the invasive or noxious species, and then just let 1,000 flowers or weeds bloom. What's the movement about this, besides you two?
We're still looking for people that have gotten tickets. I think I know 5 people that have gotten them for weeds. More people I've actually met have gotten tickets for their empty lots that that don't have fences around them, or they haven't ventured into the lot to mow them because they've been threatened by neighbors for touching anything in there. And so we're just growing, and we want people to ask and see if they know anybody and get us in touch.
Would you see it as possibly an okay thing to divide the two, like people who have ornamental, natural gardens on their lawn, as opposed to people who have an empty lot that they're not taking care of?
Sure. I think we could work together and then have task forces.
Well, I think we've asked the courts to certify Kathy's case as a class action. And I should point out that we have two named plaintiffs at this point, Kathy and a woman named Jerry Robinson, who did have an empty lot. And in my view as a lawyer, everybody that was cited was damaged in some way. They lost their liberty, their time. It's like having a law that says it's illegal to speed, and every police officer on the beat gets to decide what speeding is every day. It's too arbitrary, it's too subjective. I don't think the city can show that even unkempt lots were in violation of the ordinance, and they should not, if it's a bad law, they should get their money back, all $7 million plus additional damages. We're also asking that the ordinance be declared unconstitutional, that an injunction be issued to stop enforcement of the ordinance. I think everybody is covered by this.
So what's the next step in this battle? Do you have a court date? What's the next step?
There'll be many, many court dates. I've asked my colleague Jim Fennerty to assist me in the case. This could go on for years. It could be resolved sooner or later. Kathy has groups of people that are attempting to come up with a better ordinance. My job as a lawyer, I think, is just to get the ordinance declared unconstitutional and give them a blank slate to work on.
Huh. And in the meantime, how does it stand with you? Do you have daily harassment, or are they just waiting to see how it plays out in court?
Yeah, we're waiting to see how it works.
Who is your alderman?
My alderman is Moreno,
And-
Poco Joe Moreno.
Any help on this? Has he been any help?
Well, he allowed me to write my own letter to take to the judge that didn't even want to see it. And he said he's 100% behind me. He told a friend that went in to see him.
Okay, so 100% behind you in our ward means he goes to court with you.
Oh,
At least once. Right, Michael?
maybe.
Well, that certainly happened in our case.
Yes, it did. But that wasn't about weeds. And the other thing, the only other thing I wanted to say is do you agree that there is a kind of unkempt or not cared for lawn or yard that should we have any say over people's, the way they trim their property or not? Should we, that's the other question. Where do you draw the line kind of thing? Or do you draw a line?
Yeah, well, that's a very, very good question, because it can't be based on aesthetics, because then it could get crazy.
It's pretty subjective.
Even crazier. So I think it just takes public communication with the legislators, and hopefully we can come to something that we can all agree on.
Can you both give us a way that people might contact you if they want to share their experiences?
Yeah.
Sure. My email address is the initial K, Cummings, Cummings, 545@gmail.com.
And my email address is james.bowers, Bowers, 3@comcast.net. And I believe this litigation could be going on for years. It could be resolved sooner rather than later. But the ordinance is going to change, and I think the litigation will give that push the aldermen need. I'm not confident that they're really behind us.
You're not confident that the aldermen are behind you?
I'm not confident that the aldermen are behind us until the mayor says to get behind us.
Still that way in Chicago City Council.
Well, we're going to look forward to how this all proceeds, and I'm sure you'll keep us posted, and perhaps you'll be able to come back with a victory celebration appearance on the show.
Yeah.
In the meantime, keep up the good work gardening and bringing all kind of native species back into the forefront. And I think that's, in a lot of ways, this is probably a good thing, because it highlights some really crazy ways that our city that tries to raise money and create havoc among its citizenry.
Well, and people
Thank you.
people being run over in the meantime. And Jim Bowers, it's about time you got on our radio show, and we could spend another half hour with you alone on the work that you do, anti-corruption and
Police misconduct.
police misconduct work.
There are a lot of lawyers that have gone before me and have really led the way in the police misconduct, and I take my hats off to all of them. And I thank you, Michael and Katie, for having. Yeah, Katie. It's not. I thought it was Bob.
Bob, Jim Bob.
Thank you for having us on the show. I appreciate
Well, it's great to have you.
no.
You are listening to the Live from the Heartland show. We're live here at the Heartland Cafe every Saturday morning, 9 to 10 Central Daylight Time. We're on WLUW 88.7 and also WLUW.org. And you can look at previous editions of the show at youtube.com/heartlandmedia. And now we're on CAN TV, and we are sending out the schedule. And you can also check CAN TV for the schedule.
Channel 21.
We're going to take a short musical break. We'll be back with a couple of legends, Marshall Thompson from the Shy Lights, and Gus Redmond, a wonderful producer, promoter, and we're going to talk music. So.